Alright, here we are. Let's see. Making sure everything's working. This is my first shot with this on an actual computer, so bear with me a little bit. I'm just trying to set up the all the stuff that goes along with trying to do a stream this way. But anyway, welcome once again today. This is my second time trying to make a stream because the first time everybody was complaining about the audio, so doing it on my desktop with a better microphone. Let me change this. I don't know if changing the title will work this way. No, it didn't. Anyway, well, you guys get to see my full name. So, I tried to change the title here. I think there's like one person watching, so cool. Good to know that somebody is here. Let me know if the sound is working good. This is kind of more of a test, really, to just see if this works at all. So yeah, let me see here. Let me make sure that this is all coming through on both ends while I let a couple people show up to see what is happening. Like I said, I just want to see and make sure that everything is working properly. Yes, it is. Okay. I had to check it on my phone, sorry. But there's only one person watching. Not that I don't appreciate you for watching the stream here. So yeah, I'm going to go through a bunch of my comments that I've accumulated over time. A lot of these comments I've already answered in the past. And like through the actual comment system, but I want to actually make a video where I kind of talk about the comments and go through them, so that's what I will be doing. So without further ado, here we go. So this is like how I can see the comments. This is just a list of them all and let you guys kind of see what I see on my end. So I'm just going to start with the newest comments and work my way back, and hopefully you guys can find something useful here. Ideas to Life commented on one of my last videos, the one where I changed the turbocharger on a Mark IV Jetta. The little bit of background on that job, the turbocharger was completely blown, and it had just drained all its oil all the way through the whole exhaust system, all the way through the intake and everything. And I had just recently redid a turbocharger on a 2004 Jetta, same deal, and it was very difficult to get the oil out of the exhaust, and it just consistently non-stop smoked. So I had talked about that in the video, that I had bought a new exhaust system for the car. I bought a brand new turbo back system, just replaced it all because it was a nightmare trying to get all that oil out of the exhaust. But he said burn the oil out of the catalytic converter and replace only the muffler, which, yes, if you put like a real factory OEM catalytic converter, it's prohibitively expensive. It's like $1,200 for that catalytic converter, I do believe. I don't know what he means by burn the oil out, because it's not like you would literally have to take the O2 sensors out and drop that thing into a fire pit and let it cook for a while. And at that point, it wouldn't be any good. It wouldn't be functional as a catalytic converter anymore, I wouldn't think. So I pretty much responded to him just like I said. I bought a whole new exhaust for $175. It's brand new stainless steel. I really can't beat that deal. I guess Mayra or Myra, probably messing up her name, asked me on my video about the about OBD, specifically the Zurich ZR11, but in general OBD2 scan tools. She asked if she can make an OBD2 scan tool work with cars before 1996, and if she can get like a different cable or converter to do that. So I guess I should probably just start off by saying, not, how do I explain it? There are some select vehicles that are from before 1996 that are going to be OBD2 compliant. I've seen them once in a while. I don't have a list of what those would be. But the OBD2 standard went into effect in North America in 1996. So you can guarantee that if you have something that is 1996 or newer, that anything OBD2 compatible is going to work with it. So if you don't already have an OBD2 compliant car, no matter what year it is, so if it's a 1995 or whatever, if you don't have a car that works with an OBD2 scan tool and you want to use an OBD2 scan tool with it, there's no way I'm aware of to do that. There was a system called OBD1, but in most vehicles that have it, it's not actually that useful. Basically, they enacted this onboard diagnostics system standard just to for emissions purposes. So like on an OBD1 vehicle, a lot of times that check engine light will come on just to notify you that some part of the emission system has stopped working, and it really doesn't usually relate to the actual functionality of your car in an OBD1 vehicle. It usually is just telling you, hey, you know, you have whatever. It's very limited. Like usually like an EGR system is malfunctioning or something like that. PCV, you know, might have a problem if it has like an electric switch for the PCV, which most don't. But you know, if you have an EGR system that's not working correctly, OBD1 can identify something like that. But as far as diagnosing like a drivability concern, if your car is actually OBD1 or some type of older standard like that, my guess is that there's absolutely nothing you could do to use that system to diagnose your problem. I know that was kind of like a long, complicated answer, but it's a kind of a complicated question, so that's kind of tough. Let me see here. So we'll look back at the. Another guy asked about the Zurich scan tools if it displays automatic transmission fluid temperatures live. I am not really sure off the top of my head. I'd have to go look through that list again. I haven't had a need to look at the automatic transmission fluid temperature. I will say that in most vehicles, the temperature, it isn't that specific anyway. So, you know, especially if you have like a Ford truck and it has like a trans temp gauge, there's pretty much cold, operating temperature, and you've blown your transmission. Like there's not, it's not accurate to that degree. So just on the gauge, so I wouldn't think that the sensor is any more accurate than the gauge. But Gabac USA Free Computer Training asked me about the tow dolly vehicle. He said that when he pulls his car up onto the tow dolly, the bumper's touching the metal because the car is too low. How do you solve that? I would probably say that if you... I've pulled a lot of cars on that car dolly, and if it's the same car dolly that I had, that car is very low. I mean, I pulled a lowered Mark III Volkswagen Jetta on that, and it was fine. So if your car is lower than that, it's probably modified. If your car has coilovers on it that are lowering it, you need to take your wheels off and crank up your coilovers. If your car is stock and it's touching the frame of that car dolly, if like the plastic part of your bumper or whatever is touching that, then you need a different height drop hitch, because what could be happening is if you think about the way that that thing works, the tongue of it is coming up to the hitch. So if your hitch is too high, then you got to think that angle on the tongue is going to make it so that the bottom of the bumper will touch. So I would kind of play with it a little bit, maybe get an adjustable height drop hitch and see if you can fix your problem that way. If not, you'll need to put a bigger sidewall tire on the car, or if you have adjustable coilovers, you need to bring them up some so that you can get up onto the dolly and pull it. So that's the situation with that. Let me see, trying to find some more questions. This was a very complex question, and I'm going to expand it to you and read it to you, but it's definitely complex, and I kind of went through it a little bit. So the first part of it, little Mons T, I don't know how to say it. He says, I had all my monitors green except the O2 sensor heater, and I did another drive cycle and it didn't go green. I had the check engine light on for a P0446 code, which is the EVAP, emissions control system vent control circuit, and a P1870 code, transmission component slipping. I was told it might pass smog even with the light on and the O2 sensor heater code incomplete. I reset my codes because I got tired of looking for the issue and putting money into my vehicle to try to fix whatever issue it had. It just has the EVAP and O2 sensor heater incomplete now. Do you think if I do a drive cycle in the cold morning, both will turn on and the light will stay off so I can finally get my vehicle smogged here in Northern California? What do you recommend I do? Mechanics around here just give me some BS, say that they can fix the issue and then reset the codes and then I'll pass smog. So to answer the first part, I guess, you know, if you guys are watching this, you might need a little explanation on that. So essentially, for those of you that don't know what all this is, so in California, and I'm not super tight familiar with the emissions laws in California. I lived there for a period of time. I have some familiarity with it, but you know, it's surface understanding at best. But from what I understand, they will automatically not pass you for emissions if you have a check engine light on. Hands down. It doesn't matter what the check engine light is for. That is one part of it. And I think I've actually looked it up before, and I don't have the source right on hand to tell you where to look for that actual law. Now, so what is causing this check engine light essentially is the O2 sensor. So the O2 sensor, there's at least 2 O2 sensors in every car. Some cars have 4, but essentially they're 2 that are working together at the same time. They're just on either side of the motor, but for all intents and purposes, you have 2 actual banks of sensors. So how do I explain this? So the O2 sensor is measuring the oxygen content in your exhaust to see if your engine is running and burning all the fuel that comes into it, and running what's called stoichiometric, or as stoichiometric as possible anyway. If your car isn't running properly, the O2 sensor, one of the O2 sensors can communicate with the PCM, and the PCM will take information from that in your mass airflow sensor or your manifold absolute pressure sensor, or if you have like a really old car, speed density sensor that is measuring the amount of air coming in, and then try to adjust that. Now, it's a little bit more complex than that. There's the O2 sensor also has to do with making sure that the catalytic converter is hot enough to remove hydrocarbons from the exhaust, and there is some more complexity to that, but just for like a surface understanding of what this sensor does, it's pretty much in your exhaust. It tells the computer if it's giving the engine the proper amount of fuel so that it can run efficiently and not create more smog than necessary to operate. And apparently he has a code for it for the sensor heater. So the sensor has to is heated when you first turn on the car. Why it does that, I've heard a little bit of conjecture. I've heard that if the sensor isn't heated, it can't operate properly. I've also heard that it has a heater on it to remove condensation from the sensor. I'm not really sure why, to be honest with you. I'm sure if I was a smarter guy I would know. I'm just trying to be totally straightforward about what I know and how I can answer that. Generally, if your sensor heater isn't working, you need to replace the O2 sensor. That's usually enough to fix it, because it has a resistor inside it to actually heat it. So as far as the evap, so the evap basically is your any type of fuel vapor in the fuel tank or the lines or any part of that. They don't want to release that vapor directly to the atmosphere from the tank. So there is a canister. They used to use what's called a charcoal canister. Now they have a little bit more complex evap system that runs it through a series of chambers to try and recapture that vapor and keep it in the car and in the tank. There's like a solenoid in that will operate it. So it's an electronic piece. Sometimes that solenoid burns out. It'll give you a code, and you'll have to replace the solenoid or figure out the wiring for the solenoid. So he replied after I gave him a very short and sweet answer on the matter, and pretty much told him at least you need to get your O2 sensor replaced and figure out something about your evap solenoid here. And he responded again, and he said, I replaced the O2 sensor that goes next to the catalytic converter. Well, I mean, depending on the car, they're both next to the catalytic converter, but I'm thinking he replaced the downstream sensor. So a lot of times the downstream sensor is like right in the catalytic converter. So before I went to try and see if it would pass smog, and everything passed except the OBD, and my mechanic said it was because of the sensor I had just put in a bit earlier that day. He told me to drive it around the freeway and to go back. So I did that, and then he told me the evap wasn't running and that I needed to keep driving it more. I don't know if he was telling me the truth or not. Days go by, and I keep driving it and going in, and he kept telling me to drive it more. Then the light popped up, and I got it checked at AutoZone, and they said the transmission component's slipping, so what the hell. Then I got an OBD2 scanner, and I saw that the evap issue had happened. So I did a drive cycle in the cold morning, and the evap went green, but not the O2 sensor heater, and the code was still displayed on OBD2. Well, essentially what's happening here is more than likely he just replaced the wrong sensor, because there's multiple sensors. It should tell you, bank 1, sensor 1, bank 2, sensor 2, whatever. So there's an upstream sensor and a downstream sensor. If you replace one sensor and the code persists, then you either replace the wrong sensor, so you need to do if you did the downstream sensor, the one after the catalytic converter, you need to do the upstream sensor, the one in front of the catalytic converter, or vice versa. And if that doesn't work for you, then you need to go ahead and look for a wiring problem in your O2 sensor harness, wherever that goes to. So that's what it's going to take for that. As far as the transmission slip, you know, the sad fact of the matter is they cannot pass you if you have a check engine light on, period. It doesn't matter if it's for a transmission. As far as I know, if that light is on the dash, they can't do nothing for you. I could be wrong. You might have to consult with them. But from what I understand, that's the story with that. And as far as if he's telling you the truth or not, I lived in Southern California, and I know at the time that I lived there, which was about probably 2014, 2013, somewhere in there, when I was in Southern California, the emissions places where you get your car tested are not actually allowed to work on cars. So all they're allowed to do is charge you for an emissions test. They can't charge you to fix it, so they have no reason to lie. They pretty much took the motivation to screw people over on the emissions test out, because they don't really care. They're gonna test your car, and if it passes, they're gonna pass you. If it doesn't pass, they're gonna tell you to do what you can, you know, and drive it. And then when you drive it and they see that it's not clearing the readiness monitors, then that's it, man. They're not going to help you. Alright, let's see if I can find another. Alright, here's another question. So, Fernando Gaxiola said he has a 1999 Blazer with a 4.3 liter. He's having difficulty starting and excessive fuel smell at the tailpipe. So, my thinking on a thing like that is going to be probably a spark issue. So it's giving it plenty of fuel, but the fuel's not getting burnt, so you have an excessive fuel smell. You could also have a leaking fuel line. That would definitely cause an excessive fuel smell. And difficulty starting if you had like a leak in it, or for some reason it's not getting enough pressure, or it's got a block in it and it's expelling a little bit of excess pressure around a fitting in there. So I would probably just check spark real quick. That's easy. You can get like an inline spark checker, and if that looks good, or if it runs good after it starts, you know, I mean, you could also check fuel pressure. That's a pretty simple process. All right, let me find another question here. So, this little conversation went down a little while ago, but this guy was asking if $3,500 for a 2004 Nissan Sentra 1.8 with 140,000 miles is a good buy. I'm just gonna tell you, like, I'm gonna just give you the quick answer. No, it's not. I probably wouldn't spend much more than $2,000, but you know, if you live in an area where cars are more expensive, I can see why that would make sense, you know. But yeah, no, it's not. $2,000 for an 04 Nissan Sentra, unless it's got stupid low miles, but I don't care how many miles it's got. For an 04, don't pay more than like $2,500 at the most, and that's if it's like brand new condition, perfect. Just looking some more. Just trying to find some good questions here. I know I have more. A bunch of people that just trying to say rude things to me. whatever. Trying to get past all that just to get to your questions and help you out. So I had like a review of a Acura TL a while back, and a couple people were talking about that. I said it was the wrong year. I mean, it's a minor difference, you know. I mean, can't really say much, you know. It's like a pretty tiny difference. Not a big deal to mistake a 2001 and a 2002. They're essentially the same car. This isn't really a question, but I really appreciate this. So, I had talked about that there used to be a YouTube channel that I liked a lot called David's Farm, and out of the woodwork, some guy commented on the video where I mentioned it, saying that there was somebody that had a archive of all of David's Farm's videos. Now this channel's gone. And they're not new videos, they're just the videos he had on his channel that somehow somebody was just posting up. I don't know, you know, if they know Dave, if that is David, but I used to like his channel. I mean, I know that he ended up getting into some weird stuff that made it so that, you know, he couldn't be on there anymore, but as you can see, there's a bunch of people that comment, a couple people that commented repeatedly. Trying to get past it. Just trying to see what else I got here. But yeah. Anyway, what else is going on? I don't know. See, you know, everybody wanted to come and watch the stream when it wasn't working right. and then now that it's actually working correctly, I don't have anybody here. I have like one person here. Who's even watching right now? That's the real question. But anyway, this was like more of just a just kind of a test to see if this would all work, and I think I've got it all straightened out, and I think I've got it all figured out. If you watch this after the fact, don't be afraid to comment down below. Let me know what kind of stuff you're interested in seeing, what kind of streams you're interested in seeing. Now that I have a better internet situation over here at the shop, I can make better streams on my desktop here with a real microphone. I'm going to try not to use my cell phone since there's all these audio problems with it. So anyway, yeah. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.